As part of a series of interviews we are conducting on the David's campaign in the Middle East, we are very pleased today to have Emad Kiyaei, sorry if I butcher your name, who is a co-director of the METO with the Middle East Treaty Organization, who worked for decades on bring the country of the Middle East together to find a peace and non-violence resolution and remove nuclear weapons from that region. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's a very complicated moment in the Middle East. It's a very complicated moment from Iran. You are originally coming from Iran, and you have a very important information to talk about today concerning the negotiations who are happening in Geneva between Iran and the US. And so, but before we go too deep into that specific situation, Emad, can you please give us a geographical background for the people who don't necessarily understand what Iran is, where it's located, and what are the challenges of that region?
Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for that kind introduction. And indeed, we are at a very critical time in the world order in terms of peace and security, and no other place is currently in so much turmoil as is the Middle East. It goes without saying that the region is facing multiple wars, may that be in Yemen, in Libya, in Sudan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Israel, West Bank, and Gaza. There is no shortage of instability and violence that has been unleashed across the region. It is in this climate, it is in this geography that stretches from Western Sahara all the way to Iran and south to the Comoros Islands, where we consider it as the Middle East. And here, this geography not just plays an important role in terms of where it sits on the planet, but also the resources, the strategic location that it is in between Asia, Europe, and Africa. It stands literally in the middle of connecting these continents together. And in the midst of all of this chaos, we are now very close, possibly the closest we have ever been to a direct confrontation at the level that we've not seen before between the United States and Iran, in a war that, mind you, will not be limited to the boundaries and man-made borders of Iran, but will stretch across the region, engulfing this region into further instability, and one that will cost, not just in terms of the environment and the human loss that can be avoided, but also the structuring of the geopolitical landscape, and one that will cause harm not just to Iran, but to every nation in the region, and by extension, ripple out across the world. Everybody will be impacted by a war between US and Iran. And when I say this to you, I'm saying it with a clear eye, watching the most concentration of US military force converging on the shores off the coast of Iran. We have not seen anything like it since the 2003 US war on Iraq. And this in itself is a reminder that after 20 years of war that US inflicted on Iraq and on Afghanistan, besides the enormous financial costs and the thousands or tens of thousands of people who were dead, hundreds of thousands who were injured, has left those two countries fragmented, broken, and in Afghanistan, giving it back to the Taliban. This is the insanity of war. This is the insanity of thinking because you're the most powerful superpower in the world with the most sophisticated weapons, you can destroy the will, a nation, its people for your narrow interests, which are usually driven by the same vile groups and interests that also permeate throughout the region. The greed for power, the war profiteers, the warmongers, and those who will not sacrifice their own offsprings in these wars, but they will see the offsprings of others being massacred. For what? For what? In this case, they're using the nuclear issue as the bait to justify their violent action that they are preparing for. The same fake, false
Please use
accusations
Saddam
that
Hussein.
dragged the US into a war under Saddam Hussein in
Yeah,
Iraq on the weapons of mass
yeah,
destruction
yeah,
accusations.
yeah.
They're now using the same lines, the same playbook, the same script on Iran,
I
a
know Iran.
country, a
Yes.
country that does not possess nuclear weapons.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the only one that possesses nuclear weapons, David, you know, and everybody knows
yeah, yeah,
in this world,
yeah, yeah,
that is Israel in the
yeah,
Middle East.
yeah.
So
No, no. So
this
yeah,
is what's at stake. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, no, no. It's fine.
It's a
But
crazy time.
I just wanted to frame it to understand the oil questions of the Middle East who provide who
Not
nourish.
just the oil. David, I wish it was just the oil. Yes, oil is important. 30% of seabound oil exports in the world go through the Strait of Hormuz. The
Exactly.
Strait of Hormuz is the narrow choking point between the south of Iran in the Persian Gulf and it borders Oman. That strait blocked in an event of a war, Iran will use whatever means it has to block that because Iran has decided if the United States is going to be adventurous and start a war with Iran, Iran will have to use every tool, and one of them is to close the Strait of Hormuz. That will bring a devastation, a shock to the global energy markets unseen since the boycott of 1970s. It will be catastrophic and it will shoot up the price of oil above 100 per barrel. And again here, it will
Okay.
hurt.
So,
It will hurt everybody.
but I think the objective of the US right now is to slow down China's development technologically, energetically, economically, of course, but it's to make China slow the pace of development and expansion into the different in science, in technology, in energy, in I mean they put everything on solar and renewable energy and so on and so forth. So the Chinese know where are the issue and how they have to get out of this oil business. But until that happen, and I think the US want to use that time frame to really, I mean, that's how I interpreted the Venezuelan attack from the US. So what are the negotiations now? What are the what is discussed in Geneva? What is in the table?
David, before I go to the negotiations in Geneva, I think I have to address your point about China, and I think
Yeah,
it's an important one.
yeah,
So let's take a minute just so that we can frame this for the listeners about the role China plays in the Middle East in these negotiations, but also the global power rivalry that we are witnessing between this multipolar world that is emerging, where China, United States, Russia, the European Union, and other powers like India,
yeah,
Brazil, and others
absolutely.
are emerging and they are dismantling the
Structure.
known world order that was dominated in the post-Second World War by the Western powers. slowing down China today is like cutting your one leg off because it's so tied to the US economy and Europe. Just look at the world map.
Yeah,
Look at their top trading partners. China and United States, with all of this tariffs and this trade wars, continue to be one of their respective biggest trading partners. The difference here is that what Trump administration and Western powers are trying to do to curtail the rise of China comes 20 years too late. And this is evident in the planning, execution, implementation
I agree.
of Chinese own national interest in ensuring that it secures the resources that it needs to continue
The
expanding
development.
and
That's right.
develop.
Yeah,
That is why when you look at the one road, one belt policy of China, it connects to the mainland China 46% of global economy. It's too late.
yeah,
They can, if, for example, the Strait of Hormuz gets closed by Iran, or in the negotiations, Iran makes concessions on whatever sale of its oil to China, let's say, which I don't think is on the table, by the way. If that's the case, China will continue to expand, develop, and secure its natural resources that it requires from a multitude of sources. And that includes the connected pipelines that bring oil and gas from Russia to China. It includes the massive green revolution in Chinese
yeah,
central planning
yeah,
in producing the largest amount of gigawatts per hour
yeah,
of renewable energy
yeah,
in terms of their economy.
yeah.
We're dealing with the Chinese, and let me finish with this, David, because it will connect to Iran. China, like it or not, has been for most of human history the superpower. It just took a break for 200 years. And if we understand that, then we understand that when the Chinese Central Committee plans for their future of making sure that they have internal security for 1.3 billion people and also external security in terms of making sure that they can fend
Provide.
off
Yeah, and provide.
adversaries,
Yeah,
they plan 5, 10, 25 to 100 years in advance. Try to do that in Washington. They don't know what they're doing today. They don't know what they're doing yesterday. They don't know what they're doing tomorrow. And this is the difference between civilization and societal memory that has a thread that goes thousands of years versus a colonial project that led to the creation of a state of United States that massacred and genocided the inhabitants, the Native Americans, so they can build up their new colony surrounded by two oceans. This is the difference of a
yeah,
400-year-old
yeah,
colonial project versus an 8,000-year-old history of governance. And this is the difference to when the United States does not swallow and understand that fighting and engaging and perpetrating violence and a war against Iran, they will face a similar civilization that invented governance. They will know. They have fended off the Greeks, the Romans, the Russians, the British, the French, the Mongols, the Arabs.
you can,
Come, America, you're cute. America will
it's in
find
good. It's
itself
intel.
in it will find itself in a quicksand, the same way it found itself in 1979 when 30,000 US Marine Corps engineers and the rest of the US military intelligence and personnel packed their bags and left Iran. This is the difference. The only country in the Middle East that has not been colonized in the modern time in the Middle East is Iran. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Everybody tried. Everybody tried. And they put their own kings. They did coup d'etats. They engineered it in 1952, the CIA and MI6. They've done everything, sanctions, assassinations, sabotage, go through the A to X and Y of ways of coercive attack on Iran, minus a full-blown war, and the United States and its allies have inflicted on Iran. And I'm saying this with a sense of not ego,
No, no,
but a
no.
sense,
We
but a
need to really.
sense,
No,
but a
no,
sense
absolutely.
of understanding that a nation like Iran
Yeah,
is not Iraq, my loves,
yeah,
is not Afghanistan.
yeah,
It is not going to be a walk in a park.
yeah.
Even Afghanistan, the most rural, broken country that had come out of a Soviet Union trying to take over it, has buried two superpowers in its mountains, in its valleys.
Yeah,
Two. And that's Afghanistan.
yeah. No, no, and that's why I wanted to talk to you today to reframe the news cycle of the discussion in Geneva of the risk of here and there and what and I think with your testimony we can now at least having another larger view of the situation in the Middle East. Now, what is the how is the negotiation? To go back to a little bit on my previous question, it's it's noise or actually have some possibility to get some kind of a process in motion who could see some kind of if it's not a status quo maybe situation because I don't think any of the power at play have what it takes to resolve the issue there. And I think we're going to have to work at that. That's it a bit the project of the David campaign is to be able to bring another layer of or international support to the people who are already doing things in the ground there to really imagine a new Middle East, something who go beyond the how can we say the interest of each one conflicting one another.
David, thanks for bringing us back to the most critical topic of the day, which is that earlier this week, on Tuesday, Iran and US engaged in the second round of negotiations facilitated by the Omanis. And so the Omanis were the sort of like in between the United States delegation and the Iranian delegation negotiating on how do we have a diplomatic resolution to the current sort of impasse. The impasse centers on Iran's nuclear program, an issue that has been lingering
I
for
know.
many years. There was an agreement in 2015 between the world powers, including the United States,
Yeah,
under Obama administration that
yeah,
led to an Iranian nuclear deal.
yeah.
That ensured that Iran's nuclear program remains
In
both
check
peaceful,
and in check.
civilian, and verified, inspected
Yeah,
and monitored
yeah.
at the highest level of inspections possible under international supervision
Governance.
and
Yeah,
backed by the International Atomic Energy
yeah,
Agency.
yeah.
I say that part because fast forward 2018, Trump comes into
Consent.
power and tears this agreement, leaves it, and puts it into CPU, ICU, puts it into ICU. And we have this issue rising again. Fast forward, we are here today because of the actions of a unilateral action of Trump administration and Trump himself, whispered and supported and pushed by Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, because Israeli Prime Minister was one of the biggest opponents of the Iran nuclear deal with the world powers. Not because of Iran's nuclear program, because the normalization prospect between US and Iran scares more the Israeli government than Iran's nuclear program. They realize that the moment Iran and US actually negotiate, they realize that there are many common security, economic, and geopolitical bases and foundations
Interest.
where they actually see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And that what started to happen under the last stages of the Obama administration. Then Trump comes in and dismantles this whole thing. And fast forward, we're in this quagmire. What is the foundation and key areas of negotiation currently happening brings us back to the nuclear issue. And what within the nuclear issue are the Americans and the Iranians negotiating on? There are three things. Level of enrichment, because Iran has capability to enrich. And if you enrich at low
Level,
concentration,
you can use
at
it
low
as
level,
energy. Yeah.
it's used for peaceful purposes.
Yeah.
And if it's enriched to high level,
It
it
becomes
can be diverted towards weaponization, but
yeah.
it does have peaceful applications, but very limited. So for a country like Iran, under the threat, suspicion of developing nuclear weapons, it is important to not cause this concern by enriching at high levels. And Iran did that. Okay. And US bombed last June the three key nuclear sites of
Facilities.
Iran,
Yeah.
which was in Natanz, Fordo, and Esfahan.
Mhm.
All those three are key nuclear facilities of Iran that the US, mind you, bombed while those facilities were under International Atomic Energy Agency
Surveillance,
inspection and
inspection.
supervision and monitoring. Forget about what that
Consequence of
does.
that. Yeah.
Forget about that for a second. We are now negotiating. The Americans are saying this. One, we have an issue with your enrichment level. Okay. Number two, we want to make sure whatever we agree with you that we can monitor it, verify it, and inspect it. Okay. Number three, we don't want you to build a nuclear weapon. Okay, fine. If on those 3 points, enrichment, verification, and don't build a bomb, if that's what the negotiators from the US side are demanding from Iran, Iran is saying in whatever form it can, directly, to the point, from the president of Iran to the supreme leader of Iran to the negotiating team of Iran, they're saying, listen, we don't want a nuclear bomb, and we will
Open.
make concessions to reduce the enrichment to 3%, 3.67%.
Yeah.
And we just spoke to the head of the IAEA, and we will go back to the most intrusive inspections you want. So you can verify 24/7 what I'm doing with my fissile material. All right, so we got all of that. There's a problem. There's a problem. The problem is that the Americans are coming into these negotiations saying that Iran should have 0% enrichment. No country in the world that is a signature to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which, mind you, only 4 countries are not part of: India, Pakistan, North Korea, and guess who? Israel. The rest of the world has signed on to this, including Iran. And under that agreement of International Non-Proliferation Treaty, every country that has signed on has the right to enrich. Okay?
Of course.
Now, Iran is even saying in these negotiations, I'm telling you this as fresh as this Tuesday. Iran is saying, okay, you don't want us to build a nuclear weapon, we don't want to build it. And we will prove that we don't want to build it by you verifying it. And on top of that, on the enrichment level, how about this? We will freeze our enrichment. We will freeze it. We stop. We freeze our enrichment. We're not going to enrich for 3 years. In these 3 years, we build trust. We build capacity. And in return, hey, it's not a one-way street, huh? What the Iranians want is very simple. Remove the sanctions
Yeah.
and get out of our neighborhood. But fine, we'll start with just remove the
Sanctions.
sanctions.
Yeah.
If this was the framework, we have every solution. I have worked on the JCPOA with my colleagues at Princeton University with the best nuclear physicists who sat down and found technical solutions that are viable and political avenues that are feasible. And that's what contributed amongst an enormous amounts of other people into achieving that nuclear deal in the first place. The deal itself spells out how we can ensure Iran's nuclear program is peaceful. We don't have to reinvent this thing. It's there in 183 pages with annexes. Okay?
Printed.
Printed, available. And the first line in that agreement is powerful. The first line in that agreement is that Iran, not the Islamic Republic of Iran, not the monarchy of Iran, not the Communist Party of Iran, no, Iran will not seek, develop, acquire, or stockpile
Imagine.
nuclear weapons. That's the first line.
All right. So no, and I mean it's great you mentioned it, but
David,
I don't think
David,
that's why
David, that's what they are saying they're negotiating on.
I know, but that's not why they are.
Wait, 1 second.
Okay.
That's what they are saying they're
I know.
negotiating on.
I know.
But what are they really negotiating on? The real question here is not about Iran's nuclear program.
No, everybody knows.
It's not. It's about a system of governance that
Yeah.
currently rules Iran that is in its core anti-Western,
Yeah.
anti-US
Yeah.
in terms of the role these Western powers play within Iran, in the region, drawn from history and experience.
Yeah.
And for that, the answer is not negotiations on a piecemeal approach that just touches on nuclear. And that is why, my brother David, this round of discussions will be on nuclear. Trump is giving us a 10-day timeline or until the end of the month. At the core of this is the arrogance of believing that because you possess power and monopoly over the use of that power at that level, you must use it. And take out maybe one of the few handful countries and their leadership that possesses an alternative narrative to the one that you want to dominate across the globe. The same way Rubio in Munich Security Forum stood on that podium. And what he said was that we need Europe, Western civilization, with the US, with our shared Christian roots. He used Christian 3 times. This has a dimension that we will not have time to talk about today.
I know. I did a book on the white wedge, so
but David, it's extremely important because it's a blind spot to both the Americans and to the Iranians, is that the religious underpinnings of what is happening in a month of Ramadan, and Ramadan Kareem to all of our observers of fasting, to attack an Islamic country in Ramadan, who's headed by a religious authority, will unleash, amongst other catastrophes, a zealous Shia uprising across the region backed by the Islamic world. Now, people may not think that's important, but you know what beats greed for money and power? Belief in a divine that has committed you to defend your people and in your final and biggest sacrifice, open the gates of heaven to you. If you believe that, and millions of Iranians, Iraqis, Yemenis, Saudis, Bahrainis, Qataris, Egyptians, Jordanians, Palestinians, Lebanese believe that, I would think twice if I was America and Israel by extension, that is egging Washington. Bibi Netanyahu flew for a 3-hour meeting with Trump to convince him to attack. I would say to my dear friends, to my even adversaries, think twice before you throw this in. Because that one you can't buy with your money, you can't control with your power.
No, I agree. And now we go to my last question, and we need to wrap it up. Where do you see the international community could be helpful? In what dimension, with what mind frame, with what? I mean, I know some of my friends want to go there. They want to go to Palestine. They want to go to Iran. They want to go, but I think as an international community, we have another work to do to broadcast another dimension, another vision, another language when we go talking about the Middle East, and when we go talking about our own future. I mean, it's I cannot imagine a future for any country or any continent without resolving a different situation in the Middle East. So what the international community need to understand?
That the animosity between US and Iran is real, but doesn't have to be resolved through war. That all of the points of contention, may that be Iran's nuclear program, may that be Iran's support for proxies, may that be Iran's missile program, may that be Iran's government oppressive and grotesque repression of its own people who are wanting change and dignity and massacring them in a blackout, in addition to a horde of other issues. These are all legitimate, but they don't have to be resolved through violence. That there is a need for an agreement because, in crude terms, we're faced with two polarized options. We either have a negotiated agreement or we have war. Both will have profound impact in the direction that Iran and US go, but also the region and by extension, the globe and the international community.
And
It is here that the international community can do three key things to assist with this.
Go for it.
International community in terms of governments. Number one, to have a United Nations Security Council meeting immediately to discuss the threats of war by the United States on another sovereign state and member of the United Nations, and to address how they can collectively as Security Council with one mandate, which is to uphold international peace and security. I don't know what else is more urgent than this. Get a meeting, get it on the agenda, and discuss it at the United Nations Security Council in New York ASAP. That's number one for governments of the world. Number two, people like us in the NGO world, in the civil society world, the ones that want to do something. Your government, if you're sitting in Washington, if you're in the United States, if you're in Europe, if you're in the Middle East, if you're sitting in Tel Aviv, it is your responsibility to first and foremost realize the power you have to change and inflict change by the presence and proximity to where you are. An Israeli is more effective in Israel than it is in Beijing. An American in Washington is more effective than to take a boat to Palestine. The Palestinian is more effective in Palestine. It's important to know where your power is.
I agree.
And use that democratic power. Call your senators, call your congressmen, bug them day in, day out, and say this is not in the interest of the United States, both at national security or on a humanitarian ground or on any other ground to start a war. And you know what? I can even give you a specific one for the Americans because I know you're in America, so I'm gonna be more specific about America. I would suggest this. There is 2 congressmen who are tabling. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and others have just tabled a resolution calling for Congress to tie the hands of the Trump administration and require it to ask for an authority to attack Iran.
Yeah.
Get that through your Congress. And it only gets through the Congress if people like yourself and others who are US citizens pick up the call, get their email and call them, walk to Washington, go to Capitol Hill and say, we want this table because this delays it and puts another layer between the guns that are pointing at Iran and a madman in Washington so that we don't get ourselves into a quagmire where your sons, your daughters, your sisters, your brothers at the forefront on those aircraft carriers, on those bases across the region are going to pay. It's not going to be Trump and his kids. It's going to be yours. And that's why it's important, not because of Iran. Don't worry about Iran. Worry about yourself. That's the problem with our civil society organizations and activists. They are saying, I care about them, but do something where you are.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's in your interest.
Yeah. And that's why I was proposing the David's campaign with the David against Goliath.
And David, I finish with this.
Okay.
My brother, please, this is important. A negotiation, an agreement changes the trajectory in a region that is in combustion and change. From Gaza across the region, there needs to be an agreement, and these agreements cannot be limited to the warring parties. There needs to be regional solutions backed by international community for local conflicts. So when Palestinians and Israelis ultimately agree to a settlement with their relationship, it has to come in a negotiating table that includes the rest of the region. When Iran and the US negotiate on a comprehensive agreement, you need the rest of the region plus international community to be there. And we have a forum for that. It's called the Weapons of Mass Destruction Free Zone negotiations that are happening in New York every year, where 23 out of 24 Middle Eastern countries are in the room, including Iran, with the exception of Israel, and from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, with the exception of the United States, with international organizations, civil society organizations, that includes the Middle East Treaty Organization, negotiating on a treaty text that establishes such a zone, freely arrived at, and by the governments with the help of all of these other actors. And that, David, that is where we can achieve a new future, a reality that doesn't have to be what it is now. It can be one where Middle East is prosperous, where Middle East is peaceful, where Middle East is safe, where Middle East has dignity, and where Middle East is flourishing. And if the Middle East is flourishing, my brother, everybody else flourishes. The same Jesus and the same Christianity Marco Rubio is portraying as a Western alliance rooted in Christianity is a rebel Jew who was Jesus. born in my neck of the woods, not in Washington, not
I know.
in London. It was born in the Middle East, in the same filthy Arab, Muslim, Christian, Jew neighborhood that is called Middle East. It is there that they believe in their Jesus, in the resurrection of Jesus, in the Messiah. The Messiah was not looking like, a European man. It looked more like me. So that's why we have to remind the Western powers that if you want your Christian project, then remember where Christianity was born. Was born. That's it. Yallah. And when Middle East bleeds, you bleed. When Middle East prospers, you prosper. And that is why humanity is a single family with many tribes. Don't
I
forget
cannot
that.
thank you enough for your time, your patience, and your patience for peace and non-violence. Emad, thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to talk again soon. But for
Thank you,
now, I
David.
think we cover the issue pretty well.
Thank you.
Be well, and then we talk later. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
David.